Hey guys, Rob at OCD Coffee here, yet again creating another roast along video for you. Today, I'm going to be roasting a Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. So the Yirgacheffe is one of those most like sought after type beans that you will see in a lot of cafes. I know in LA and in New York, these are like usually the most expensive when you're going to get a pour over. So we're going to roast this today. Now, when you're roasting, because this is a roast along and you're learning about roasting, one of the things to understand about using, mine's a 2 kilo roaster, but whether it's a 1 or a 3 or a 6, whatever you've got, you want to pick basically 2 batch sizes that you are comfortable with, that you can get good at. Right, so I roast basically 2 pound batches or 4 pound batches. Now that means that if I'm going to have a 2 pound yield, I need to roast 2.5 pounds. And if I'm going to have a 4 pound yield, I need to roast somewhere between 3 3/4 or 5 pounds of coffee. Got it? So that means I'm burning or I'm losing basically a pound per 5 pounds that I roast of green bean, transferring it into a roasted bean. So that's something to keep in mind when you're buying and selling, is that you might buy 100 pounds worth of beans, but you're going to lose, for every 5 pounds, you're going to lose a pound. Okay, so that's a significant drop. Okay, so what you need to do before you do anything else is make sure that your KPAs are set to where you want them to be right after you drop. Okay, so I've got my KPA set to 4. I'm going to turn my heat off. I'm at 435 degrees, and it's dropping. And at exactly, I'm going to put this baby down for just a moment. I'm using Artisan. So one of the things that I want to make sure that while I'm using Artisan, you can see it here in the background just a little bit, is that I don't start this. For some reason, I have a little bit of glitch in my system that if I start the Artisan roaster going, or the software going too early, it ends up dropping the charge as if I've actually done it. It dropped the beans in, and then I have to reset, and it's a pain in the butt. So I just that's mine, maybe not yours. After that, at 410, which I'm at right now, I'm going to drop the beans in the hopper. I don't drop earlier than that because I don't want to cook them in there. And then I'm going to drop this baby in at exactly 400 degrees and kick the KPAs up, right, or the gas on immediately. So boom, let all those beans drop in. Good, just make sure that you allow them to drop in. I made that mistake when I was doing the first charge ever on this. At 4 pounds, or these is like 4.75 pounds. I opened it and then I thought they were all in, and I closed it, and then I realized I had a lot more beans in here. So just wait it out and make sure they all drop in. So if you're seeing my Artisan now, I'm looking for a turning point. Now, my previous roast that I'm roasting from, I don't have a previous larger batch Ethiopian. I had 2 options here. One is that, or Ethiopian, or I should say the Yirgacheffe, the most recent, right? I have 2 options here. I can either pull from a previous roast, right? Or I can use one of the 2-pound roasts and kind of keep an eye on it and look for similar traits of rate of rise. And what I mean by that is certain beans will be... certain beans will react to heat differently, depending on moisture, depending on density, the altitude at which they were grown. So there's a lot of factors that are involved. But generally, if it's going to have a spike, it's going to have a spike generally in the same spot. So right now I'm trying to get a turning point here. I don't know exactly where it's going to turn, but it should turn somewhere between 1 minute and 20 seconds to 1:35. And so I'm looking like I'm a little bit on that trajectory, so we'll see where it lands up. And I'm not going to drop the temperature here until it looks like my rate of rise chart is starting to kind of peak a little bit, which I don't want. I highly recommend checking out Scott Rao's book about coffee roasting. His latest book, so good, and talks a lot about using Artisan, using different softwares for roasting. Highly recommend. We're about 2 minutes out, and I'm at 148. I think I said 120 or something like that. I meant like my 2-pound roast turnaround was at 134. 148 was my 4-pound roast. which is good. That's good. That's like right in the window. Now what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for my dry end, for my beans to go from green to yellow. So I've got a little bit of time here. I'm gonna keep the heat on at 4 kPa and see what happens. While that's happening, actually, I was gonna show you something that I use for containers, right? This is actually a dog food or cat food container. Holds 50 pounds of cat food or dog food. And this was recommended to me by Michael Herbert, who works at Artisan. So this is it's a great container because it's food grade, it's airtight, no pests can get in, and it's a great container for stacking beans that are, like, I order 65 pounds of beans at a time. So highly recommend picking one of these up. I think it's called a Gamma container. Check it out. You can find them on Amazon for like 50 bucks. Just keeping an eye on my rate of rise here. And I'm wondering, I'm thinking maybe the turning point was fantastic. But in terms of coming up, now I want my dry end to be around 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That's 2 minutes from now. Between 5:30 and 6. That should be about my dry end time. I don't know if I'm going to get there because I don't know if I started out too low on my KPA. Should have maybe started at a 4.5, but we'll see. We'll see if you live and you learn. I am going to keep the heat on here, and I'm probably not going to turn it off at all. My rate of rise should stay fairly high, and then when I'm ready to start dropping it, if I need to, I will. I've met roasters who just crank their heat and never turn it down, which I think is kind of ridiculous because you're not really doing anything. You're just throwing it in. But we'll see. Okay, so while this is happening, I'm looking at a roast time probably of around like 12 minutes, 13 minutes for a full capacity roast. My normal 2-pound or half-pound roast take about like 8.5 to 9 minutes. I can complete the roast time. So one of the things that I've noticed is that when you buy, or all the people that have reached out to me about like roasting and asking for questions about roasting, it's usually because they can't get their roaster hot enough. Their beans take, somewhere between a half an hour and 45 minutes to roast. That's an ungodly amount of time to have your roast take. I'm still very green in here. My rate of rise is still okay, but I'm looking at, let's see, what is that? I'm looking at like 7 minutes. Well, generally 8.5 minutes until first crack is a good time. Somewhere between 8.5 to 9 minutes for first crack full capacity. So this, based on the trajectory, which I'll try to zoom in here in the post, so this way you can see what I'm working with here. It looks like I'm at, right now, my bean temp is at roughly 300. Dry end usually happens somewhere in the 350 range. First crack usually happens somewhere in the 380 range. If you could see this, I've got a pretty good rate of rise line. It's kind of moving straight across. It's showing me in a projection that my dry end is going to be somewhere around 8 minutes, but I have a very short window from dry end to my first crack. And so maybe I'm going to be in a good window. So I'm keeping the heat on. Nothing's changing right now. Like I said, if you're not getting that heat, you're probably the most common issue with not getting enough heat is the fact that you're using a low PSI regulator. You need to pick one of those up. You can get them on Amazon. 30 PSI is the one that I have, and that allows me to crank my KPAs up. I mean, I could break this gauge here if I wanted to. I can crank it up so high. So pick one of those up, and that's really going to save you. The other thing is that if you're taking a really long time to roast, now one of two things. One is the mistake I just potentially made, which was when I dropped the beans in, I didn't have the heat up high enough on the drop. So I might have needed to have it at like 5 kPa. Maybe I needed to be at 4.5. Who knows? But we're going to find out as we go. The other issue that you might be running into is that you're not allowing your roaster to to warm up or preheat properly. I generally turn my roaster on. I crank the kPAs up to about 3 to 3.5, and then I let it warm up, and it stays and operates within 420 degrees Fahrenheit and about 440 degrees Fahrenheit. And it just bounces inside that range for almost an hour, anywhere from 30 minutes to, 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how much time I have. But you will notice a difference. If you don't preheat your roaster, when you drop the beans in, it's going to cool the internal temp so fast that it's not going to actually, it's going to be a problem. Okay, I'm at dry end now, which is good. And that's a little earlier than this thing thought it would be. And now what I'm waiting for is first crack. So my temperature is at 342. Yeah, okay, 342. It's a little lighter than I thought it would be. Or I'm sorry, I mean like a little cooler. You know, 342. I thought it would be closer to 350 something, but 342 is fine. And now what I'm going to be waiting around for is first crack here. I'm keeping the heat on. I'm starting to plane off on my rate of rise, and I want the rate of rise to drop little bits here and there. But what's going to happen around first crack, which always happens, is there's going to be a significant release of moisture. And when that happens, and it should be happening around 380, so in about 20 degrees or so, when that happens, my internal temperature is going to drop when my beans start crackling. And so I'm going to let this hold on for the next, minute, and I'm at 9 minutes though, so I'm a little slow. This would not be considered to be like a fantastic roast for me. My learning lesson is that I didn't start my kPAs high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wait it out. I'm at 366, and about 10 degrees we're going to start hearing some cracking. We might hear some outlier crackles. If you're not familiar with first crack, it's the first initial release of moisture from the bean while roasting, and it sounds like popcorn popping. It's kind of an interesting, see? There was just some outliers. Almost there. So now we're at 10 minutes. And I call first crack when it's like crack, 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 crack. These are like 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. There we go. Now we're in first crack. 10 minutes and 12 seconds. A little slow. I'll probably be in first crack for about a minute. But if you could see, my rate of rise was kind of like leveling off right here. And now I'm assuming, if my theory is right, which it should be, we'll start having a drop off in our rate of rise. Significant. It might have a big drop, but we'll see. And we're looking for, I'm probably going to pull it like 20% development to somewhere 20 and 23% development. But that crackle sounds good. I'm not sure if you can hear it because I'm mic'd up, and it kills kind of a little bit of background noise. But yes, now my rate of rise is starting to drop. I'm a genius. I figured this out. Yeah, now it's working perfect, and now it's cooking. You can hear it. Yeah, that looks good. That sounds good. I have it's an ugly rate of rise. I wish it was better, but I think I'm going to be okay. I'm at 11% development. So while this is happening, I'll also say, I know that a lot of you are concerned or curious about owning a Yoshan roaster or getting a roaster for yourself at home. Something like this is not all that expensive, and I know that ordering things from China and then having to wait a good amount of time for them to arrive can be a little bit scary. So if you have any concerns or any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm having so far a very good experience with Yoshan. I'm going to drop my my roasting temp down now to 3. I'm just going to record that. Um, and um, and now I'm at about 17% development, and I'm at 410 degrees. I'm getting very close. I don't usually use my trier because I find that if I use the trier, I cool the bean temp too quickly. And it gives me a mixed read. I'm going to drop my temp again to 2.5. I'm going to try to, I'm having a little uptick here, which I don't necessarily want. I'm at 20% here. I'm going to turn on my fans. I'm at 13 minutes, so I'm actually right in the window of how much time it takes to roast. I just prefer to have my first crack happen a little bit earlier. And I'm at 21.5%. Gonna wait for 22, and then I'm at 22%. I'm gonna drop. And that looks pretty good. Yeah. I still got a little bit of crackling happening, but this looks phenomenal. This roast looks really good. I'm just gonna mark that I dropped. I'm gonna mark my drop, and I have like a 20. Yeah. I dropped it at. Oh, actually, that's funny. I dropped it at like 400 and. Well, I'll have to look back on it. I'm not exactly sure what my drop temp was. But my beans look fantastic. This is a nice roast. I'm very happy with it, except for the fact that I think that I should have started higher in my temp. But you live and you learn. I'll look at my artisan, and I'll determine what I need to do in the future. So anyway, if you have any questions about any of that, or if you have any questions about your own personal roaster, and if you you want to learn a little bit more about it, and you just need some help, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help if I can. And that's it, guys. I hope you have a great day and enjoyed that roast along. All right, bye.